Hi guys, and welcome to Forge Right. Also welcome to part 3 of this series in building my coal forge. If you're just checking in for the first time, you haven't seen the channel before, I strongly recommend you go back and check out part 1 and part 2 where I build the fire pot and the clinker breaker. We're now on to construction of the air intake, ash dump and inspection port. You can find the full series if you look in my playlists under Coal Forge Build. Part 1, Part 2 are in there. You can also go back and look at the video Sub 50, or I think it's now called Repaired Sub 50 because there were some problems with the first video. So if you go back and look at that, you can just go through and look at the very end of it where I show the plans that I made on a program called SketchUp. If you're interested in that sort of thing, very good little program. I'm only just learning it myself, but as a beginner who'd only been using it for a couple of days, I managed to design and draw the entire forge, fire pot, blower, pipes, intake, all that sort of stuff. So strongly recommend you go have a look at that video as well, and then you'll be up to date and get back onto this one. So today I'm going to show the fabrication of the air intake that is below my clinker box, the junction to the ash dump, the construction of that, a inspection port that I have on the bottom, and the adapter that goes to my 100mm ducting that then leads outside to my blower, which is in a separate compartment, so I can reduce the noise of the electric blower and also make more room in my workshop as I have limited space. So without further ado, let's get into the build. Okay, next step, making the air intake pipe and ash dump. So that's where my fire pot sits on there. That is the actual outlet of the clinker breaker. So down from there, roughly, I'd say it's about 4 inches or just over 100mm, I have a mark out for a hole. Now that hole will take a pipe of roughly that size, so at a 45-degree angle coming out of there. That shows that the air intake will come in at this angle and blow up with no restrictions. The other end of this, I've cut a 45-degree angle. Oh, geez. Off there. That's where I got this piece from. So it's the reverse end of that, cut up that end. That'll be the piece that joins onto the main pipe. I've then come down about 4 inches from there to there, or 100mm. I've marked a square, a 45, half that, and marked a line across there, so that'll be a 22.5-degree angle. It's cut off there. Then I flip that over. I should be able to, because they're an equal 22-degree angle, when I flip that over and join it back onto that, it should, in my mind, come out at that angle. Let's see if my calculations are right. Okay, happy to say that my thoughts about cutting a 22.5-degree angle off this piece, so a straight piece like that, halve the 45 that we've got there, create a 22.5-degree angle there, flip it back round, put it into place, and we now have a 45-degree angle across there. So that's my air intake. And now I've just got to build my ash dump. So this is just a piece of aluminium I'll be using as a demonstrator. So I plan on having a piece that goes across similar to that with a hinge welded to both sides of there. This will have a weight on it, so it's heavy. The ash dump itself will want to pivot like that, let the ash out, but then the weight will pull it back down. So pull the lever and back down, pull the lever and back down because of this weight. Now I can cut my hole out of here, weld that onto that. I'll probably weld those two together first. Okay, next step is done. So this is all welded together now. I don't know if I showed that before, but that's my angle all put together. Worked out very well. This hole cut through there, that worked out fine. I'll just drop that there for now. That slides up and is welded onto there. And my ash dump I've created by welding a hinge to the inside of there. Creates a nice little dump on there, like so. Okay, just wanted to go through a little bit about the sump that I want to put into this section of my air intake. Had a really good suggestion by Grandad's Forge, which was to use a threaded T-junction pipe, which has that, you know, inspection port that you can unscrew, open up, and get any additional ash that may come out of this dump. I don't know if anybody remembers my design at all, but this is the 45-degree angle that I cut off the the air intake, which will be welded to there. Now that works pretty well. As I showed previously, I think you can see that that is my ash dump there, but a certain amount of material may fall down into here and end up sitting in the bottom of here and potentially get back into my blower pipe. I want to stop that, so Grandad's Forge idea was to put a T-junction in this pipe, which I think from my plans, which is understandable, he was under the impression that I was using round pipe because I didn't specify on the plans. So he wanted to suggested that I could put a T-junction in here with one of those screw-in caps that you just unscrew and gives you access to here for the material that may come down the pipe down here to pull that out. Well, as I say, I'm using square tubing, not round pipe. So I had an idea that this 45-degree angle piece that comes out of there, I would reuse, because I always like to use my offcuts where possible. And I'm going to flip it round and over, and I am going to weld it onto there. So there will be a hole cut through that section there. This will then be welded onto there, and there will be a door, not this large, probably half this size, cut down here somewhere, similar size but not as big, and that will be on there with a hinge welded to here. Sorry. So just like I did with the ash dump, I'll have a hinge welded to here, so that can then open and close like that. This is a plate that I've been making, so that plate will go on there, actually that way, but this plate will go on there, which will give me a connection point to have my air intake adapter bolted to that plate. Okay, I think I've got that ready to start welding together now. I've cut the hole out of here. What I've done is I've cut it so that this can sit flush with there. Didn't leave almost anything there. I've cleaned up all this edges so stuff falls through nicely into this area here. So that will be welded on 3 sides all the way around there. What I also did was I left a bit overhanging, a bit of overhang I should say, and I cut a little groove in with the grinding disc, the cut-off disc, which weakened it, and then I bent it in, so that gives me a bit of a lip coming in here, so that when the air comes in, it kind of hits that a little bit and is pushed up, so it's not blowing in here and picking up any of this stuff and blowing it back in. And also if any ash does come down here, there's a bit of an uplip there to stop it from potentially coming back out. So that didn't take much, it was just an extra score along there and then bend that down, so that helped there. I think that will help, I should say. That's going to be welded, as I say, along there, and I've made a little door. I'll see if I get this in the right direction. I think that's the way it goes. I'll double check. Yep. So that goes on there and will be hinged along here. So we'll open up that way and allow the stuff that comes through here to be pulled out. Okay, just doing some of the final welding on my air intake. There's the ash dump. That's where the air comes in, comes out here. I'm going to be making my little inspection port over here. So I'm going to weld up this corner here, sorry, this edge here and this edge here. And yeah, we'll try and get it connected. I don't like to do too much in one go on this thin metal, otherwise it might burn through. So I generally just do a little bit, let it cool off a tad, and then keep working. I also like to do a bit on one section, then come over and do another section, then come back to that, give it more time to cool down. Always helps to trim the little scorched bit with the ball on the end. You'll see how that runs along there and then gets caught on the end there. Creates a little molten ball on the end. Always helps to get rid of that to start your next weld. It's about as far as I like to go in one hit. The heat starts to build up and generate and you can melt through at the end. Certainly not going to go falling off, that's for sure. Okay, I'm now ready to weld on my inspection plate. So I've made a couple of little packers. Hinges tend to have this the central spine here has a little bit of a lump sticking out the side. So I've taken a little bit of an offcut of some plate, same thickness as the hinge plate, and I've cut a piece the size of this plate, drilled some holes through it, and I'll now spot weld down between the two plates, which will weld the hinge to the plate to the blower pipe, and then I'll weld around the edges. And this is the inspection plate itself, which I've got sitting in there so that I can make sure it's sitting nice and flush here, and we'll close up and fill the gap properly. Okay, just quickly going to show my inspection port system. I think I showed before that I had welded up the hinge. So this is the hinge here welded onto the system. That is pretty much what it looks like, how it will be connected to the fire pot. So we have the clinker breaker and fire pot on this section here. On this section here, this is the air intake, ash dump down here. Now, as I said, material comes down in here, gets caught in this little sump down here instead of getting back up in here. So I have to have something to remove that material, a method. So what I've come up with is just a little bolt, a little washer on there. That opens up, allows me to get in there, do a bit of cleaning, dump out the material. That has just got a small nut welded to the side of the air intake. That closes up, and that screws on there. Doesn't have to be screwed on tight, just finger tight so that it closes up the gap, and then I can get in and clean material out. So just wanted to fill you in on that little system there. Okay, another short update. I've now managed to complete this entire section with the ash dump, the inspection port, and the adapter for my blower intake. So there's just a bit of a view of the blower intake. So that's just a plate welded to the end with 4 holes in it, which will marry up with this plate on there, which will have a circular hole cut into there with my adapter plate that will allow me to join the 100mm round ducting to the 100mm square tubing. Okay, I've now completed what I think is the final part of this mechanism here, which is effectively just welding a very, very large hunk of steel, or in this case 2 scrap hunks of steel, to the bottom of the ash dump, so that when I connect up my mechanism to here to lift up the ash dump door, the ash drops out. Once I let it go, that will quite quickly close, because that's a heavy, very heavy weight. You can see by the way it thumps on down. It will have a mechanism attached to it, so it will have to pull it down, but that will do the job really well. Here we are again with yet another segment of this air intake, ash dump, inspection port and adapter for my blower pipe. I know I've said that this will be the final video and it's all been completed, and I always seem to find something else that I have to show you as part of this part of the build, and I've done it again. So now what I've done is I ordered one of these very cheap vent covers online. Bought 2 of them, one for either end of the aluminium ducting. They're only very thin, not very strong, although they're reasonably strong in here. You know, like you're not going to be compressing them hard, not going to be doing anything violent to them. So I bought two. They've got this grate on the outside and a mesh on the inside, which mesh is supposed to be there, of course, to stop any bugs crawling in through the vents. Of course, I'm not going to be using them for that, so this is the one that'll go on the blower end. I'll put that aside and I'll show you this. So what I've done is I've adapted it. I've cut off all of the vent louvers because they're not necessary, and I've taken out the mesh because that's not necessary. I've then, whereas this has got a lip that runs all the way around here to sit nice and flush on whatever it is you're attaching it to, usually your ceiling, I've hammered that out and I've cut out some flat points. So now this can slip through this hole like so, and then it creates a connection point to be able to attach my ducting pipe on. Now that's all well and good, but I thought maybe I needed to get a better seal. So I'll just line that back up again. There we go, that's lined up pretty nicely. So what I've done is I've taken a bit of rubber matting, stuff you put in the back of your ute. I've cut out a piece and that will go on there. So it's just a bunch of bolts going through. I'll fast forward this bit so I won't bother talking. Okay, so now this, in the area where the air would potentially leak out, can now go onto there, and through there, and then we'll whack on some bolts. So some nuts. I always get nuts and bolts mixed up, sorry about that. I'm using a split washer first and standard washer second. Before, you can see I used to work in the slips, before the nut. Okay, now there we have it. That's what I believe to be a pretty good solid. That's nice and solid now. So my ducting, which I haven't unraveled yet because I'm not going to unravel until I'm ready to put it in. That ducting there, once I straighten it out, will slide over. Then I'll get I'm potentially use a cable tie, which can just be clipped off at any time. A couple of big thick cable ties, or I might lash out and get a large bike strap, which is probably what I'll end up doing. A whole $2 or something for a grub screw bike strap, and that will be a very good seal for my air intake. These things have got these little, these little lugs on the end here which bend in and out, so I won't put it on and off too many times, but you can just pull them out a little bit when you're installing it, and that way it doesn't pull off too easy. And yeah, she's a good unit. So now I'm going to leave that as that unit and try and hopefully officially say it's finished. Well, there you have it, the finished air intake, ash dump and inspection port, and the adapter that goes onto my blower pipe. So The next video will be putting those units together, attaching the clinker breaker to the fire pot and to the air intake system that I've just shown. I'll be then cutting a hole into the table and dropping it in. That will allow me to get it into position and start designing some of the framework around making the table itself. I have a table, but I'm going to adapt that table and be able to hook up the handle for the clinker breaker. I'm going to use a foot pedal system for the ash dump, and designing where to position the fire pot itself in relation to the hood that I'm going to be building. Once I've got all that positioning set up and the whole unit put together and dropped in, I can then start constructing the hood, which will be the next stage after the one I've just talked about. Hopefully I'll be able to get that done soon and get the video uploaded, but please have patience as I work full time and only get to do this on some of my weekends. Okay, thanks for watching Forge Right. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hit the like button if you do, and please subscribe and share the channel with your friends. Okay, bye for now.